Survivor's ready.
If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said rustle feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
We have great bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here to talk about all things Survivor, more specifically the events of this past week. I'm Nathan, this is Tony. Tony, we made it through part one of the final.
Yeah, the finale. We're halfway through the finale. Look at us
Yeah.
go.
We did it. You feel accomplished? Like, is this
I feel
kind of nice, like checking it off a little bit as we go, not just binging it all at once?
Yeah, it's much better actually. No, I'm honestly curious what they're gonna have on next week's episode because there's not much left. I feel like.
Well, next week is only 2 hours as opposed to the usual 3-hour finale, so
Okay.
they just have less in general that they're going to be playing.
Okay, that makes more sense then.
Yeah. Here's my take. Maybe this is shocking, especially since I'm the one ranting about this. I think I liked it. I like the
This
split
episode?
up. The breaking it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I think I liked it too. It was weird having two vote offs in one episode, but I didn't hate it at all. I think it'll depend on next week if it feels like there's not enough
Yeah.
for a finale. Like it's very dependent on that. This week was
Mhm.
nice though. And I think just like the storyline and where we were at with the two people that went also was very satisfying.
Yeah, and I think just thematically, it was interesting that this is the last time that there will be votes to vote someone out, right? Because the last two are tribal councils are fire, and then it's final where it's just the speeches and jury votes. So it kind of made sense to okay, this is wrapping up this phase of the game. Now we're entering into what
Yeah.
again actually feels like the final. So I never really processed how it is a different stage almost. Once you get here, obviously once you get to 4, then it's just fire and beyond, right?
Yeah.
But this really made it feel like that. And so I don't know. I think when we usually debrief the finale, because I think it's usually just one person goes, and the next week there would have been 5 people, right? The finale usually starts with 5 people.
Yeah, it would have been 5, so then you have one
Mhm.
vote off and then the fire and then yeah.
Yeah, because I just feel we don't really get to process or debrief that 5th person voted out, and they usually get the
Mhm.
short end of the stick, at least in our discussions. And I think the way that's so I kind of like that we get to at least breeze past, because again, there probably isn't as much content to be shown because it is
Mhm.
pretty straightforward. And I mean, tonight or last night's episode was pretty straightforward in a lot of ways
Yeah.
for some people, but I don't know. I still like giving it some more room to breathe, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And that player, that 5th player is usually a pretty that's the last person that you need to get out before you get to fire a lot of times. Sometimes somebody sneaks through because they have an idol or whatever, but that's often a big player, and so they deserve a little bit more fanfare than just brush it under the rug because the final vote's coming.
Exactly, which totally kind of breaks just logic of adding the fire to begin with, because he used to be upset because all his favorites went at 4 and now it's just 5. So
Yeah,
you can't
That was always
stop
gonna
it, Jeff. You can't stop it.
he stopped it for that one season though.
That's true. He did save, I guess, Ben from going home at 4, right?
Yeah, I'm very interested because, like I said, I'm watching through with some friends, and they're getting to that point, and I'm very interested if they're gonna love Ben or that season or how they're gonna respond to it. Because I feel like Ben is pretty likable. This is a tangent when a lot happens.
Have they?
But
Sure. Have they seen any season with the fire making twist?
no, they started.
Okay.
They've been watching from the beginning, so they haven't seen fire making at all.
Gotcha. So this will be a real time reveal for them as far as
I think so. They might be vaguely aware of it, but I don't think so.
Sure, but I mean, that was the first season I watched live, and that it was a pretty frustrating twist in real time.
Yeah. What's that about? it seemed obvious, and then it's like, oh, I just have an advantage. Great.
Right, like players that are preparing their end game only to be like, wait, this isn't the end game anymore.
Hey, expect the unexpected. But anyways, let's get into this episode. Huh?
No. Let's keep debriefing season 35. Yeah, well, I think it is worth acknowledging. So Andy was the 6th person voted out, or not sixth. He came in 6th place. Sorry, he was not the 6th person. He made it pretty far. But I think it's worth noting because he was on my draft, and so I did lose some points there.
Sucks to suck, dude. You're so bad at this.
Yeah, so I think before him, the last person was Gabe, and he was also mine. So I think if I'm doing the math correctly, I think I might still win because I still have Teeny and Sue left, and you have Sam. So it might be close.
But how does it feel to pick the two lamest people on the season and to win with them? Like that, like, yeah, you won, but like, who won the moral victory here?
The two people that I can almost guarantee aren't going to win this game.
Yeah, but still Teeny is like getting upset that other people aren't respecting her game when her game isn't very respectable. Like,
okay. Yes, that thought, but let's apply that to Andy because since that is relevant. I love that
a good transition.
Andy's downfall came from him trying to get people to respect his game, right? Like,
yeah, and it worked.
It worked. She finally respected him to the point of getting him out.
She finally understood it. Like, yeah,
loved this arc for him.
Oh yeah, Andy as a story for this season was an absolute treat. And to see like that was the big thing we talked about all last week is like this was a crazy good move, but I still don't think they respect it. And he realized that. Good read. He told the only person who could ruin his life, essentially. And they were so confident she didn't have an idol. But like that's not a bad move to be like, hey, I'm voting you out. Well, I don't know. The way he said it was like I wouldn't want to vouch for him at Ponderosa at all, but to like send the person out being like, hey, I'm gonna explain my game a little bit more to you, just so you're like aware that I've been doing stuff.
Yeah, that is an interesting thought. Like, if she doesn't have an idol, is that like a game-winning decision by him? You know, to kind of like just give her a little prep. Like, hey, just so you know, I'm gonna say some stuff. Just a heads up, because like you're right. I think where it was heading was if he gets the final tribal, this comes as a surprise to everyone. It's like, what? Your flips were like logical? Like you didn't just flip all the time, you know, because it seems like that's kind of how people thought he was playing the game.
They thought that he was just playing emotionally and like all willy-nilly, and it's like, no, he's at least for that vote he was driving the vote, but like they were calculated moves to move back and forth. Even if he wasn't making the ultimate decision, he was making good moves to be in the right spot, kind of.
And that is a really thin line of like, it was his downfall, but it also wasn't a horrible decision to talk to her about this.
No.
But I feel like that was a theme throughout the entire episode with his tribal, but also the next tribal too, of like people just being very honest about like where their votes are going. I'm like, are we forgetting that there are still technically advantages in here? Why on earth would we assume that it's impossible for her to have an idol? Like that wasn't even discussed.
Yeah, like I don't remember. Idols haven't been a conversation for a while, so it seems likely that there's a couple out there floating. And yet nobody knew about Sue's, and so you just think, okay, Genevieve is the only one with an idol,
right?
And that's the only fake idol in the game, and there's 2 real idols. Like it feels like such an awful read. And then they kept being like, oh, is that the red paint idol? Which means you're aware of it, unless you think people got voted out with it, in which case there's definitely idols out in the like it's wild to me that you're that confident. But they just experienced splitting the vote was not a good decision ultimately, and she had the block of votes, so there wasn't much they could have done about anything, at least with Rachel in the first place.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because they were aware about her block of vote, which now just like doesn't really matter, right? Because she can't use it anymore. Correct?
She did use it.
She did use it? When?
She used it on Sam. That vote. I think she used it so that there was no.
How did I miss that?
It had showed Sam going into the booth and being like, "Oh, I don't have it."
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
But she didn't like announce it, did she?
No, I think she doesn't. I think it's a behind the
Oh,
scenes
that's
thing more
interesting.
so.
I feel like maybe I'm thinking like the steal a vote where they had to like
Yeah.
declare it and stuff. And okay, maybe that's why.
I think so.
No, you're
Or
right. I
maybe they've
totally
done it
did. I
differently in
totally
the
did
past.
see Sam's writing on the paper. Yeah. Okay.
But she definitely had to do that to like keep up appearances that she is fighting. Like she's still hoping that she might win, like get the vote right. Like she might pull someone to her side.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Let's back it up a little bit
Yeah.
because I think I'm fascinated by the fallout and debrief of the previous tribal council, which
Mhm.
many have declared as one of the best moves in the new era, us included.
Yeah.
Teeny is not very aware or
No.
socially smart at this game. I like how
No.
I don't know how
No,
to
she's not.
describe it. The fact that she could not crunch the numbers and could not connect the dots of like what went down. Like they fully had her believing that this was just an accident and this happened to
It just
work out in
happened
their
to work.
favor.
Yeah.
Like they just all
Yeah.
miscommunicated and it's like, wait, Andy, like blah 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 blah. To the point where Teeny like declared this at the next tribal council, and Rachel's like, "What are you talking about? No, what? Like, do like,
Yeah.
like Andy flipped. Like, what do you mean? There's
And Andy flipped, and that's what they said. But they made it seem like it was a game time decision. There's no world where someone with an idol doesn't play that idol unless they think at least and have had conversations with someone that they're going to flip.
mm-hmm.
Like, that just does not. And I think the theme of the whole episode is if you tell Teeny anything, she will believe it 1,000,000%. Unless you tell her that she is not a big threat to win the game. That's the only thing that she's skeptical of.
Yeah.
Because they told her like, "Oh wow, that was all such a happy accident." She's like, "Yeah, it totally was." And then immediately Sam's like, "Hey, her idol is fake." She's immediately like, "That makes sense. It's totally fake." Like everything, she just completely buys. And that time it was correct, but that's just because she happened to be like Sam happened to be telling the truth, and
Mhm.
so she was correct in her read on that because she just believes everything.
Except she then didn't believe Genevieve when she went to confirm it, and then she's like, "Wait a minute,
Yeah,
Genevieve would never tell me the truth. All she does
but
is
that's
lie."
because Rachel and Sue had put in her head that it might be a lie, and then she's like, "Oh, I hadn't even considered it
That's
being
true.
a lie."
Okay. Okay. So they did just believe. She did just believe someone else. You're right. Okay. All she does
Yeah,
is she just believes like the last information that was told to her, and then goes and like tells someone about it. Like that's. I'm like really disappointed in myself that it took me up until like last week to realize that she's like not a good player, like at
Yeah.
all. Like
Yeah.
she truly might be, and I don't want to be mean, but like one of the worst players, I think, if you look at the history of this
Oh,
season. And I think it's
absolutely.
just because like she has been such a main character when it comes to like the confessionals and like so many
Mhm.
storylines have been like revolving around her. And like I don't
Mhm.
regret drafting her because clearly I was correct and like she was gonna make it far, but she's not making it far due to like anything she's doing. I truly just
Yeah.
think like people are like, what's the point? Like, has she ever been considered to be a target?
Mm-hmm.
You like you're
no chance.
Sue has even been thrown out there, right? Like
Yeah.
Sam at one point wanted to target Sue. Like you need to be at least a little bit of a threat at this point in the game, but like
And
no one has
yeah.
even considered that.
And we realized a few weeks ago, and at one point Sue was the linchpin between a couple of people. And so like
Mhm.
I do think it made sense at that time. But we realized like 4 weeks ago, we're like, oh, Sue's actually not good at this. Like at all. But Sue
Okay,
and Tina were like,
I don't know if Sue's bad. I think she's irrelevant. I think her game is much better than Teeny's, though.
I don't know. I still think Teeny socially, maybe that's wrong.
Like Sue's
I'm
not
still-
going around
I'm
making the
still-
mistakes Teeny is. Sue at
I'm
least
still
is
drinking
like
the Teeny Kool-Aid. Well, Sue's
voting
not being put in
correctly.
a position to make any. She just kind of being handed good alliance. I don't know. Maybe it's unfair. But yeah, I'm just saying. Like a few weeks ago, we're like, oh, Sue was prepped as like, oh, we thought she was gonna be a really good
Mhm.
player, like a really
Yeah.
important player, and she's just kind of there. And Teeny, we just kind of convinced ourselves that like, oh, she's still great socially, And then this week it was like, no, she's just really bad at Survivor, actually.
Yeah, no, like I can't think of one like, and you look at her voting record, like the amount of times she has been on the wrong side of the vote.
What
It
about
is
Romeo?
absurd. It's kind of like Romeo.
You had to compare her to Romeo, who's the worst player.
Oh man, I'd have to be reminded of Romeo's game. I really do not remember much about him at all.
It was
other
pretty
than just
non-existent.
there.
She's at least part of conversations, it seems.
Yeah, I'm looking. I mean, I guess she did technically vote for Sol and Gabe and Kyle. So it's really only the last few votes. But then it was
Didn't
like
everybody though, wasn't like everything unanimous back then?
everything was unanimous against Sol, except for Sol. So yes, it was unanimous. On the Gabe vote, there were 2 votes for Genevieve, because Sue and
Sue was kept out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'm more thinking like the pre-merge, she was blindsided in the past 2 weeks. So I guess that is a little recency bias in my mind. But still, that's not good. It's not good to be like, well, and then like the next tribal council, which I'm getting a little bit ahead, but while we're on Teeny, like she just straight up tells the jury, she's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. Like I can't tell. I have no read of who's telling the truth right here. And then the rest of them are just sitting there like, okay, like
cool. You'll catch up maybe.
Thanks for giving us a leg up here on the our jury speeches if we're facing you. I mean, like, she is just a shoo-in for final tribal. You would be an idiot to want to put her in fire and try to send her home at this point.
Unless you want to beat her at fire. You just want to win fire.
Why
so
would
you?
you?
In there.
I mean, yeah, if you need like an easy win, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe she's good at fire. It doesn't seem like it.
No, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for Teeny because I do think like she's very active on Twitter and she has been taking it fairly well as far as like,
Good.
look, I am like it's humiliating seeing how like paranoid I was and how exhausted I was and how like you know what I mean? So I think she is like handling it in a way where it's like, oh wow, like I am this bad, you know? And I almost like feel bad because I think the show in a way like propped her up to be a, you know what, like I don't think it's just us that thought this. I think from like day one, people kind of like, oh, I think she's going to be like a, you know, a main character this season. And
yeah, you can usually get a sense in the first episode or two. It's like, oh, this is gonna be a prominent person, at least for the first few episodes, if not making a deep run.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel bad for her in that sense, where it almost would have been better if she just got like an invisible edit and just kind of coasted through and be like, what's Teeny up to?
Yeah, but it is kind of fun watching the season through her eyes. I'm not gonna lie. She's a good storyteller a little bit.
Yeah, especially when she learns new information every 5 minutes.
Yeah, hey, it sounds like fun. It sounds like a roller coaster. I'm not gonna
lie. Is there anything else pre-Andy getting voted out that you want to discuss or bring up?
I think it was cute that for that reward or whatever, it was not like Andy, Sam, and Rachel came back together, and it was those 3 just chilling.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a cute little like, the Gata 3 that have been together for a while, or like haven't been together for a while, are like together again and talking. Other than that, it'll come. Yeah, I'll mention that later. I'll say
it was weird, like the 3 of them, because like they've never worked together, like the 3 of them.
Yeah,
because like there was the time where Sam early on pulled in Andy to vote out Annika and blindside Rachel, right? Then the merge comes and they think they're together, but then Andy flips on Sam and Rachel because Sam and Rachel were kind of in sync there. And then Rachel ends up targeting Sam and pulls in Andy, and then Andy and Sam. So like the combination of the 3, how it's been like this 2, now this 2, now this 2, now this 2. And they've like never, I don't know. There is something very like fun about that. And I mentioned it like a couple weeks ago. Like I kind of love the dynamic between Sam and Rachel. But also like, I mean, we'll see later, like Rachel and Genevieve. I think like Rachel just has like this weird like rivalry, like love with other people that they're just so openly like antagonists against each other, but it's cool, it's chill. They're like, and I think they even said
Yeah.
that. Sam's like, oh yeah, in a couple, like, don't worry, a couple days, like in a week or two, we'll be chilling, it'll be cool. But like, yeah, I'm gonna get you.
Yeah. And we mentioned it last week. The story of the season being like that trio of women, kind of all playing the same game and all seeing that the other two were playing the same game. And yeah,
Yeah,
it was a very satisfying conclusion, I think, to that. Even just like going into that final 5 vote, and it's like, oh, like it's gonna is it gonna be done here, or what's gonna happen here? Is Genevieve gonna fool him, and we're gonna have a Rachel Genevieve showdown at Final Four, like, and at Fire? That'd be sick. It's just been very satisfying.
yeah, completely agree. Yeah, and Andy gets voted out. Bye, Andy.
He does.
I think we talked enough about his game, right? We move on.
I think I said last week that it's going to be those 3 women, and Andy's move is just going to be kind of a blip on the radar compared to like the overarching story. Kind of what it was.
Yeah, no, I think we were correct in predicting like that was the conclusion of his story.
Mhm.
Like him having all these confessionals about how good of a game has been playing. It was all for that move. Like that's what they
Mhm.
needed to like prep us for. And then
Yeah.
we saw it, and then that was it. That's all he had in him.
And then we already mentioned it, but like him going out, realizing that no one respects his game, and trying to remedy that, I think is very satisfying. I think he'd be a fun player to see play again. I really do.
Yeah, I think he would probably be top of the list of this season for like
Apparently, someone
returners.
from this season has already been like, is already coming back for season 50 or something, or has already been reached out to. I've seen stuff
Oh.
on like Twitter and Reddit about that, and everybody was wondering who.
Oh, so no one knows who it's, or I mean, someone knows, but like it's just
Yeah,
it's been
I think
leaked that
so.
someone.
There's been rumors, yeah.
I would have to imagine I don't even know who else, because like you got some people, like I mentioned
really wanted it to be
Caroline
Kyle.
last week, like that'd be fun. Yeah, Kyle would be good. Gabe wants it to be him, probably not. But Andy I think makes the most sense overall, unless like, I mean, spoilers for what we might do at the end, but like I feel like it's really Rachel's game to lose, and if she does end up winning this season, I could see her like being the lead of, I don't know, the new era maybe to be returned.
Yeah, that's fair. I could absolutely see it.
All right, let's talk about this next tribal.
Hmm.
Leads up to it. Worth mentioning, Genevieve won the individual immunity that
Yeah.
sent Andy home. And
Yep.
then Rachel wins the next one, making it her third. Very impressive.
Mhm.
What a run. What a lopsided season in some ways of
Yeah.
who actually wins. Because I think Kyle won, is it 3 or 4 times? Oh gosh, why
I'm
can't I
seeing
find this?
3.
3? Okay. And then Rachel won 3 times. There was that one time where the 2 people won and Sue won
Actually,
another.
4. Sorry, he won. He won
He
4.
did win 4. Okay.
Yeah.
So he won 4. Sue shared one of those wins with him because they had 2 winners. Genevieve won once, and then Rachel won the other 3. I think that's it. Correct?
Gabe won 1 as well.
He did win. You're correct. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, not a lot of
Variation.
yeah, like, and like, who would have thought that like Rachel would have been like this comp beast?
That's one of my favorite things about these games is like the most surprising people can turn out to just be really good at like the balance portion and the puzzle portion of these games, and that's really where it comes in. Is like the focus and the balance, and yeah, it's always a surprise. Like obviously there's the Ozzy, there's the Joe, where it's pretty you could see it coming, but then there's the random like Rachel just dominating that you just don't see coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like the challenges haven't been like, I don't know, different, or like it seems
Mm-mm.
like typical stuff we usually get. So yeah, it is like, I don't know, it just kind of like shows that like I think Sam was early viewed as like this threat because it's like, oh, he could be good at challenges. And it's not that he's like bad, but like clearly just not good enough to like win an individual. And like that might be a shot on his resume if he gets a final tribal and doesn't have anything like that.
Yeah, he didn't win a single one, right? We just said that. Yeah.
No, not a single one. Also,
And that's wild.
no advantage from him either, right?
No, I don't think so.
So I mean, like, I know people still think he's a threat, but like, I don't know.
He's
like,
been on the chopping block a lot and has survived, and that's valuable.
It sure is.
But it's not. It doesn't hold a candle to Rachel.
Yes. All that. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but yes, Rachel is very good at these challenges.
So back to that tribal council that we were going to talk about. Genevieve, I found it so interesting that her emotional, like, very honest response to Teeny that yes, it's a fake idol, was more confusing to everybody, and they thought that they were being played again. I think that was like very interesting and very indicative of how they played the game, that like everybody was super nervous. That's like crap, even though she was being completely honest, like, yep, it's fake. But they were so unsure. And I'm so honestly surprised that they went Genevieve, because Sam just felt like the safer option there. And Teeny, I guess, said that was intentional, that she voted for Sam just to be safe. But yeah, what'd you think of that whole process?
Yeah, I think I do get the Genevieve move, but I think that is, and I feel like I'm kind of hinting at this, but like the more I process it, like the more I'm like, does Sam have a winning game here? And I think if you compare Genevieve and Sam, I think Genevieve was the bigger threat. In almost every way, Like, even if it is just one individual immunity, that's one more than he has. And I also think, like, from Rachel's perspective, who felt like kind of, the leader in some ways, being the one who won the individual immunity at this tribal, I do feel like getting out Genevieve is probably better, because, like, if their games are comparable to the jury, that's probably not someone you want to split hairs with at final tribal. Might as well go with someone like Sam, who is, whatever game he is going to, explain to the jury, it's going to be different than her game. And so I think, like, that's usually your better shot. So I think it made sense for her. I think...
that makes sense from that perspective. I think just from the perspective, like, if we're saying from the tribal before, you never want to risk that somebody has an idol and, like, it's wild that they just kind of assume that she didn't, even though there's not much they could have done because of the block of vote. They could have shifted the target or something, maybe. To then go into this tribal and say, like, oh yeah, just assume that it's not real and just go on Genevieve. It seems like you should have the same skeptical, like, this is a real idol, like, we need to do something about this.
But is that not what Teeny was doing, though, by splitting it?
Yeah, but the only reason that wouldn't have mattered if Genevieve and Sam voted a specific way and then Genevieve played an idol on herself.
Oh, I guess I see what you're saying. So, like, if the idol was real and Genevieve and Sam were playing them.
Yeah. And so...
Okay. No, that makes sense. I get that.
So, yeah, I agree. Genevieve is the clear target between those two. Absolutely. It's just to be... And I think they just read the situation and they were confident, and it was a correct read, obviously. But I
think the other thing I hadn't thought of, and I don't know if this would work, I think at best case scenario, you're going to rocks, but, like, if Genevieve and Sam would have voted the same way, they could have at least tied this, assuming that the votes would have been split between the two of them. Now, the risk would be, like, in this case, there were 2 votes on Genevieve, 1 vote on Sam. So if they put votes Teeny's way, the tie is between Genevieve and Teeny, right, for, like, the revote. So, like, I guess now that I'm saying this out loud, that doesn't really make any sense, because then the 3 people revote all their votes.
Sue and Rachel would still just vote.
Right. So never mind. But, like, in my mind, I was thinking, like, could they, like, finesse their way somehow? Because they did kind of just, like, give up in a way and just be like, okay, I guess we'll let the 3 of you decide. Like, we're going to vote for each other, and we'll let the 3 of you decide who is going home.
Mm-hmm. And Genevieve really felt like she just lied down. And I don't know if it was her steering into the skid of like, oh, they're really skeptical of me being this honest that I have as a fake idol, and they're scared of that. But it felt like she was just like, it's a fake idol. Like, vote me out. I'm ready to go.
Mhm.
And I don't know. It was interesting. And I don't even think I realized it until this moment that it was very much, she was just like, oh, yep,
Yeah.
that's my game. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and that's kind of been her arc for a couple episodes now. Is like almost feeling this guilt, really going back all the way to the soul vote. Like that's
Mm.
kind of like the only time where like she made a move, she blindsided an ally, hurt some people in the process that she was working with, and then from that point on, she's always been the underdog, just kind of like barely making it by. And
Mm-hmm.
every week we're seeing these confessionals of like, oh, I wanted to play calculated, but now I'm like having these emotions about feeling bad, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's kind of a bummer in some ways because like she has the potential to be like this vicious survivor player that we don't
Yeah.
really see a lot of anymore. And I think like last week was like, okay, like she does have what it takes to like pull off these big moves. And I don't know, it is kind of a bummer because I feel like these players are almost getting like punished in a way for like playing the game that way. And I think Andy might be a little similar where it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you flipped on us, therefore like you got to go. And it's like they're really putting a lot of value into like having this honest game. And I think that's like the conclusion that Genevieve almost came away with where it's like I just need to be upfront. I can't keep lying. If I go out, I go out, but like at least I'm telling the truth now. And I'm like, is that the lesson I want Survivor to be teaching us?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's I wonder, maybe it's kind of that. We don't really know because like after you come back from that immunity challenge where what's her name? Rachel just won immunity. That is the most logical thing in the world, is that Sam is going to tell somebody that my idol is fake to try to flip the vote on me, because right now everybody thinks that I'm safe because I have an idol. And when Teeny comes up, she's just like, yeah, it's fake, and just like folds and is like, yep, absolutely, it's fake. We made it together. I don't know. It's just, yeah, the emotions that came in the back half of the game are very interesting with her and kind of take away the fun of the like cutthroat. And I don't want to diminish like living with people for 20 days and like going through this intense experience with them. You probably want to have a bit more camaraderie and be honest with people and not constantly lying to them. But she was fun to watch. The cutthroat nature was fun, and so seeing her kind of go out with a bit of a whimper was a bummer. Um,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't lie if I wasn't fist pumping when Rachel won that immunity challenge.
Oh, 100%. I mean, this is nothing against Rachel. I think she's a very fun player. Um, and it is like, the two of them use their powers together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we get like a Rachel Genevieve team up? Can we
That'd
get
be
like a
sick.
rival season of Survivor and have the two of them? That'd be fun.
All in. Let's do it.
And then Sue and Kyle can be another pair.
Gross. Oh, she would hate it so much.
She wouldn't do it.
No.
Sue played her
She'd
idol
leave.
at this tribal.
Yeah. And people seemed impressed that she had an idol.
Yeah, that's the weird. I don't know. It's so funny. It's so funny how idols work because finding an idol, whether or not you use it at all or use it correctly, like finding the idol alone is seen as like a a resume builder. You know, and I'm just like trying to process like is that impressive? I don't
Well,
know.
could it be like the fact that you had this idol and no one thought you did? Like you were able to search and
But
sell
is
it that you
that
didn't have
impressive
it.
if you don't use it to like further your game?
I mean,
I
she didn't
think
use
what
it to
that
not
does,
further her game.
it shows that like, oh, you have the potential to keep things from us. You know what I mean? Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
there was more, but it's only potential.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing because I think I feel the same way about like we've seen it a couple times in this new era where like people bring an idol to the final tribal is like, look it, I never had to use this. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's cool, I guess, but like I don't know. Like, so the idol is irrelevant. The point is that you were able to find one and keep it hidden. I guess like that is almost
Yeah.
just as impressive as using what it's meant to be used for.
Yeah. And maybe this isn't in Sue's case because we're just kind of talking generally now, but like there's also the guts, the cojones, to like go through that many tribals and not flinch and not feel like
Yeah, I guess,
not
but like
be
who
the
I don't
overly paranoid. I think that's valuable. Like yes, you end up not actually needing it for whatever reason. Sue's not a great example because she just isn't a big threat, and that's why she ended up not needing it. But if you play a game and you are at least a decent threat, say you're Sam, and Sam has gone through this. Say Sam found found an idol really early and has gone this whole time and has not played it and has not felt like there's been times where he's received votes and he's been very much on the chopping block, but he's had the trust and the determination that like no, I secured the votes that I needed and I don't need to play this. I think that's impressive. In her case, I agree. I do not find it all that impressive, even though the players seem to. Does that make sense?
it makes sense. I don't know if people think of it like that. I think
That's fair.
like in her situation and others, I think
It's
finding,
really just
like
that they
the
found
act
an
of
idol.
finding one. It's like we
Mhm.
all looked and you're the one that found it. And to me, I base that way more on just like luck, you know? Like maybe it's like determination.
got
Maybe
with
she
the
was out there
beware.
longer. Wait, what was that?
And got away with the beware in her case. Like she had she had the paint thing and
I
like
guess
she
so, but like
she
that doesn't
looked all
really tell me anything about like her game.
True.
Still, I don't know.
True.
I think I just disagree that like, I think like idols have a purpose. Like there's a way to use an idol, and the fact that like people don't use it the way they don't use it the way they're designed to be used, and try to like use them to do a second, like there's like a second level to it. It's like I could use
Yeah.
it how it's designed, or I could not use it how it's designed, and
Mm-hmm.
both seem to be equally valuable to the jury, which is weird to me.
Yeah. All right, that's fair.
But I don't know. Like again, in her case, like what's she gonna do? She wasn't gonna play it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, right? So I think
No.
like the only thing she could have done is like play it on Caroline, which honestly like would have been a big move, right? Like
Oh,
that would
absolutely.
have
That would have
been,
been huge.
especially
Genevieve would
because
have been gone, or Genevieve or Sam. It would have been the tie.
Yeah, so I don't know. But yeah, good
And
for
running
Sue.
Operation Italy, that would have been dynamite. I would have been mad, but like looking back, that would have been fun.
I mean, that would have been a much more satisfying conclusion to Sue's story, right?
Oh,
I
sure.
think like it honestly that makes more sense to me, like thinking about how
Mhm.
she was billed in the pre-merge and like the relationship between her and Caroline. Yeah, what an interesting person to probably go to Final Tribal. Because again, episode 2 and 3, I was like, "Oh man, she could win this," and now it's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
she
and
is
she was presented as,
invisible.
like, a force, and then just wasn't. Just
And-
obsessed with Kyle for half the season.
True, and I mean, it's fascinating because like I don't even know. Again, and this is where I think she's different than Teeny in the sense that she is not demonstrating a bad game. At worst, she's demonstrating nothing, right? Like we're
Yeah,
not
okay.
seeing moments of her making mistakes. We're not seeing moments of her like she got blindsided with the Gabe vote. That is correct.
Yeah.
But like she did have relationships, and even when Caroline's gone, she did like link up with Rachel, you know. So like I don't know.
Mhm.
I think
There's a
It's
difference
just-
between having a nothing game and a bad game. And
Yes.
I agree. Sue has had a nothing game, whereas
she has done a
Teens has a
good
bad
job
game.
staying in the game and keeping her threat level at almost 0.
mm-hmm.
Teeny has kept her threat level at 0 because she's not a good player. I think that's the difference in my mind.
But it's so hard in the context of Survivor to say certain people are bad players when it got them to the end. And I think that goes back to the conversation we had a few weeks ago
Sure.
where you can't judge a move based on the result. So
Mhm.
like she's made a lot of bad moves, which has, I guess, in turn lowered her threat level to practically -50. But it's kept her in the game, but still that doesn't make those moves good. It doesn't make them better. She's not a very good player, and that's part of the reason she's there, but that's also part of the reason that she's not going to win $1 million.
We're talking about Teeny, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just making sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. Keep keeping up. All right. Anything else on this tribal council, or should we get into I don't know, some predictions of how we think it's gonna end?
No, I think that's all I got on this tribal. I got a prediction though.
Okay, what's your prediction? Let's hear it.
So, there has been one other time that I can think of because it was in this last episode that Rachel has been billed as really good at something and then she choked at it. This puzzle, everybody's talking about, oh, she's great at this puzzle. She's incredible at puzzles, like she's the one to beat. Then she chokes. She loses at the puzzle and loses that immunity.
Yeah.
What else have they been talking her up in? She's great at fire. No one can beat her at fire. I'm scared that there's a chance that Rachel loses at fire because then chokes again.
It's
not a story I think they're telling. There's just a pattern there that I'm
no.
in.
I get that. Here was my bold prediction. Because what's another theme and pattern we've seen on this season? That would be Sue's face, correct?
Yeah.
A lot of ash, a lot of soot.
Yep.
Sue has been not hyped as like, oh, she's the best at fire, but she has been the one making the fire.
True.
Is there a world where Sue knocks out Rachel, and then Sue does end up winning, being this Gabler level edit where?
Oh, I'm
but
gonna be
yet
furious. Kyle is her Ellie.
Her edit from like the beginning, all of a sudden it's like, oh, so like we just missed the middle game.
No, the middle game is her hating Kyle and him getting voted out. Like Gabler not liking Ellie and getting her voted out.
Yeah.
Oh, it scares me a lot because that makes Rachel the Jessie, who's the clear winner.
Yeah.
And then they're allies, so Rachel's going to be sitting on the jury with Caroline like, oh yeah, Sue actually played an incredible game.
Teeny is the clueless Owen. Sam is the Cassidy, who's kind of like mid game. It kind of is like, wait a minute, is Sam actually the winner's at it? Now that Jesse's out, clearly Cassidy was the secret winner at it the whole time.
I'm so upset. Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing, I'm going to be less upset if that happens because I think this is outlined better than Gabler was. And I think after Gabler won, nothing can hurt me anymore. Like, once they did that, now at least I see that as a possibility.
I suppose. There's a few players that I loved in a season as much as I loved Jesse that season. I was all in on him from fairly early on, I think. This would break my heart though. I almost don't want to watch next week's episode.
I think that's a slim chance, I'll be honest, but I think there are still a lot of questions on like what type of jury is this going to be, right?
Yeah.
And I think they have a lot of respect for Rachel's game. Teeny, is Soul gonna go to bat for her? I don't know. Like,
I think he'll go to bat for Rachel almost more because they have.
That's what I would think.
He gave her that thing that saved her game.
Sure.
She should have been out. Like she just should have been out at that point, but then had the safety without power.
That's true.
That's what I think about.
I'm interested to see how she frames that in her final tribal. She could really like, if she takes the actual time to like properly thank Soul for that.
Yeah.
Like that could be huge. And then there's like Sam and Sue, I would say, because like they both have strong allies, right? Like Sierra went immediately. Sam never harmed her. He was also like hurt by that, but yet somehow survived. Sue lost Caroline. So like they equally have people that probably are gonna, I would assume they both vote for them respectively. So I don't know. Like I'm so curious to see how this is gonna go.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when you look at it, it's like, oh, maybe this is a bit more dicey than I initially thought. But I think, do you really think Caroline, as much as she loves the game, would vote for Sue over Rachel?
Oh, that's a good point. I don't know.
Like Sierra, I'm 100%
Yeah.
on board with her. She would vote she would vote Sam 1,000,000%. But yeah, I don't know. It's honestly interesting because I could see like Caroline going either way. Andy's for sure Rachel. I think Genevieve's for sure Rachel.
Should we just come up with every outcome for Final Tribal and then see how the jury's gonna vote?
Nah, we're not doing that. That was wild doing that for Big Brother 21.
Our first season, we never did again. I mean, do we have the same ranking as far as like winners go? I feel like we probably do, right?
Yeah, I mean it's got to be. I'll just rattle it off. It's got to
Yeah.
be Rachel, Sam, Sue, Teeny.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. In my
And
head, everybody
it
seems
feels
to
like-
love Teeny, and that's the only thing that like is her redeeming quality. Is people seem to genuinely enjoy Teeny. But is
I
that enough to
suppose.
get votes? I don't think so.
Right, because like what, like literally, does she have a resume? Like, does she? I don't think so. At
No.
least Sue had an ally that made it somewhat far. At least Sue had a target for weeks that went home. At least Sue found an
know.
idol.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
and
thought you
individual
believed that.
immunity. And she
Yeah.
won individual. So you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like that's a resume. Honestly, that's more of a resume than Sam. I think Sam just gets that like golden boy edit that I can't
Yeah.
justify why I think he's ranked so high, but I think I'm believing everyone by saying he's a threat. When I'm like, is he a threat? But they keep saying it, so like clearly they think that.
Well, he was popular in high school, so of course he's going to get a good golden boy at it.
That's true. Yeah. I will say, like, if anyone but Rachel wins, I think I'm gonna be a little disappointed. I will say
Yeah.
that.
And that's one of the beauty of these games is like there are seasons that you're just disappointed because it's never going to go perfectly every time. But then when it does, like with I would say with D a few years ago, where it's like she's the clear favorite and watching her win, that was extremely satisfying. But then you have the Gablers, where it's just like this will forever break my heart. But that's why I keep coming back because I never know if this is gonna be a Gabler situation or if it's gonna be a D situation.
Yeah. Let's just hope for the.
It's nuts.
Any other predictions that we want to rattle off about? I don't know. Fire. I mean, like, it feels like Teeny won't win individual immunity. Probably not Sue. So is it just gonna be like Sam and Rachel, and maybe Sam gets his first? Maybe Rachel ties record for females. I think with 4.
Maybe. Let's see. Let me think. I feel like if anybody but Rachel wins that final immunity, they're gonna go up against Rachel and Fire. I think if Rachel wins it,
the immunity.
yeah, I think so. I think all of them, maybe Sue. I don't know if how well Sue knows the game. I think Sam will feel like he needs to take her out to win the game. Teeny will definitely feel that way. Sue, I feel like, will feel that way. Whether they do it, I guess, is a question, but that makes the most sense to me. And if she wins, it probably sends in Sam and Sue and makes them battle it out, would be my guess.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see it like I need to get Sam out. Sue's probably the best option to get him out, so go for it.
Exactly.
I
Look
don't
at
want
the
to
soot
risk
on her
myself.
face.
I don't need to, do this. I got enough on my resume. I'm fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could see that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think in the rare case that like Teeny or Sue wins, they probably just send Rachel and Sam right to Fire.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was easier than I thought.
Yeah.
But this is like this is
it's not
fun
a
because like
complicated end game, but
I-
it could go wild.
well, I feel like because they split it up, like I'm able to visualize the outcome like where it's like if we're going into next week with 5 people, it's like, well, who's going to be in the final 4? I don't know, and it makes these rankings, which who knows? Like maybe it could be a boring finale because it comes out rather predictable because
Yeah.
there's less options. I don't know. I guess we'll wait to make our mind if this is a good idea or not.
Hey, I'm ready. Either way, I'm excited. I think there's a very good chance Rachel wins, and I've been rooting for Rachel for a couple weeks now, probably. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
It'll be fun.
If there was like an America's favorite castaway, who do you think gets it this season? I think that's a hard question.
I mean, if it's according to the Facebook group, it's Kyle.
Kyle
But
by
they
a
just
mile.
like they love white guys that are good at challenges. That's all they need.
Yep.
Just give them
Yep.
like they're
And
so
a season of
basic.
just people who have won at least 3 individual immunities would be a fascinating season.
Yeah.
I think you could fill out. You should be able to fill out enough women that have won individual immunities.
Oh, 100%. 3 is the minimum. I feel like
Yeah, 3 is the random minimum that I just threw out there.
I mean 3 is a big number when there's only so many per season, right? So it's like most people don't even want one. You have a list pulled up already?
I'm trying to. It's one of those that it's tough to just like pull up.
All right. Well,
Oh, that's
should I
rumors,
wrap it
that's
up,
not
or is
helpful.
this worth going on a tangent? Should this be our off mic discussion?
Off mic?
All right. Stay tuned next week when we might have a fan edit of a what's the word I'm looking for? A fan casted season ball challenge threats.
I'm excited.
Fan fiction. Fan fiction. I couldn't think of it. All right.
Woo!
We'll be back next week for the second part of the finale. I will say, notice Jeff at the end of this episode, he said, next time on the season finale. He didn't say part 2 at the end of this episode. He said next time
Jeff.
on the season finale of Survivor. So which is this? Because as much as I'm saying I like how they split it up, this at no point felt like a part 1. This felt like a concluded episode.
Jeff's got to be better than that.
All right. For more episodes of Not Game All Personal, visit notgameallpersonal.com. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere there's a podcast. Really, we're on. Where are we? Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAP Pod. That's at NGAP Pod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and we'll see you next week for the 2-second part finale.
14 seasons, 2 pals, 1 podcast.